How much tolerance and understanding does one need to be able to put up with the hurtful things that people say and do to us? It's hard to say. It's really hard to put your finger on it. It does take a delicate touch to handle things like that diplomatically. And it's not always so easy to handle things the way you should, or the way you think things should be handled in the heat of the moment. People will say horrible things about you or to you, or they'll work against you and work at cross purposes, and they're just trying to be hurtful. They're just trying to be malicious, and you've got to find a way to deal with it, or else it takes you down. It could really destroy you as a person if it was serious enough, and if you didn't have a coping mechanism in place. We've heard it said before many times that hurt people hurt people. And that's absolutely true. Let me give you an illustration of that. When I was a kid, and this was probably back in 1975, 1976, my father was a pastor of a church up in Monticello, Indiana. And the responsibilities of a pastor are many. He not only leads the congregation, by bringing a sermon to them, he's a comforter, he's a counselor, he makes hospital calls, house calls, he officiates marriage ceremonies, funerals. They carry a lot. That's why large churches have oftentimes many different pastors to kind of disseminate the responsibilities, because it's an awful lot for one man. And I remember this time. There's a particular time when I was a little boy. I was 5 or 6 years old, and there's a little boy in our church that I really liked a lot, and we became fast friends. I don't remember his name. It was too long ago. And he really made an impression on me. And once again, because it was so long ago, I couldn't exactly tell you why. I just remember that what I remember the most is that he was just a very kind kid, very genuine. And I don't know if I could have put it in those words back then, but he was just a great kid. I mean, he just seemed so nice. And we always sat together in church. We always sat together in Sunday school and vacation Bible school. And he was just somebody I really liked a lot. And I don't know if I ever saw him outside of church. But I didn't know him for very long, because he died. You see, he didn't come from a very good home. And his father was a drunk. And one day, this little boy and his father went out to a canal close to their house, and they were fishing. And the little boy slipped, he lost his balance and slipped, and he fell into the water, and he could not swim. Now, I don't know if he was hurt, I don't know if it was deep. I mean, it's a canal, it doesn't seem like something that would be deep, but somehow or another, this little boy drowned. His father was too drunk to be of any help to him. Too drunk. And he was gone. And my father was immediately called out to the scene. And so he arrived there, tried to be of comfort, and tried to, do whatever he could to help the situation. But, in those situations, they're very hard to help. I mean, it's just, how do you help someone who's just lost their child? And not only have they lost their child, but they lost their child due to the inebriation of a parent who was unable to help. So you can imagine all sorts of emotions. Now, fast forward a little bit. This is probably just months later, I'm guessing. If my mother's listening to this video, she could probably straighten out the facts, the timeline for me. But our family had adopted a little girl, and a newborn little girl, and her name was Heather. And Heather was a sweet little, if I remember right, seemed like a redheaded little girl. But I remember holding her and spending time with her, as everybody in our family did. But when she was 2 months old, she died. She died of crib death, what we call SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. It remains somewhat of a mystery, but nevertheless, without spending time speculating on that, I remember that night. It was a very horrible night. I remember the emotions. I remember the sounds. I remember so much about that night, and I can talk more about that later. But I'll never forget what happened. And I want to tie these two events together, because what happened at some point, this mother of a little boy, this mother who lost her little boy, was so hurt and so enraged by the fact that her husband allowed this to happen, that at some point in the conversation, she had called my father and she told him, "I'm glad your child died. You deserved it." Now, you're thinking to yourself, that's horrible. I can't think of anything more horrible to say than that. Well, you're right. I mean, it was completely undeserved. It wasn't justified at all. And I don't really know how my parents reacted to it in the moment, because I heard the story relayed to me over the years. But I'm sure it hurt my parents quite a bit. I don't think that they lunged at her throat for it. I don't think they did that. But, I look back on that. I listened to them tell that story, and my father was very understanding. Now, he didn't justify he didn't justify her actions. He didn't justify what she said. But he basically summed up, and he didn't use these words, but, we often, like I said before, we oftentimes say hurt people hurt people. And he understood that. He understood why she felt the way she did. But my father was not vindictive. I don't believe he became angry at her. I believe he was probably very, very hurt. I'm sure my mother was. But here's the takeaway from all of this. You just never know what someone's dealing with. You never know exactly why people are saying and doing the things that they are. You come across people who are they just seem horrible and mean, and you want to put them in your place because you think it'll make you feel better. You think maybe they'll learn something from it. And really they don't. And it really doesn't make you feel any better to confront the situation and hit them with a blow over the head with a verbal hammer. It most time doesn't work. It doesn't make you feel better. And oftentimes it can actually put you in a bad light. And so you've got to be very careful. It's hard to say. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what the solution to that problem is, because it's not that simple. All I want to convey is that consider before you lurch back at them and cut them to the core for what they've said to you, for how they've hurt you. Consider the possibilities that you're dealing with a very hurt and very angry person. It doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be dealt with. It doesn't mean that you don't need to walk away, and it doesn't mean that you need to fix them, because it's possible that they just can't be fixed. And it's possible that you can do absolutely nothing for them. So think about this. Think about this today, what I've told you. It's very likely that the best thing for you to do is to say, "I understand," or "I'm sorry," and walk away. And sometimes that takes a lot to be able to do that. But I don't know whatever became of this family. I can't imagine. They say that couples with a death in the family, like that of a child, the divorce rate is very high. So I can't imagine they ever stayed together. I wouldn't doubt it if either one of them are not alive anymore, but they may be. I don't know whatever became of them. I don't know if any other conversations ever took place after that. I don't know how my parents really dealt with that internally over the years. I don't know, but I think about that a lot, and I just want to impress upon you that it might be possible that we just have no idea what people are dealing with. And if it's, try to find some strength to be patient long enough to delay a reaction or a response. Be willing to walk away. Don't lower yourself to their standards. I don't know what else to tell you. It was something that was on my mind, and I wanted to convey it to you, and I hope it hit home for somebody. All right, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.